Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 2nd meeting of the Lower Providence Township Board of Supervisors. If you could please all rise and join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Deb, could you please call the roll?
My pleasure. Ms. Ekman.
Here.
Mr. Sergini.
Here.
Mr. Duffy.
Here.
Mr. McFarland.
Here.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Here. Thank you. Prior to our meeting, we held an executive session. We discussed personnel, legal, and real estate matters. We had all three tonight. Okay, first item on the agenda would be the consent agenda. And would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jill. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Have any questions from the board? Questions from the audience on the consent agenda? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Item 2, new business. We have consideration of a request to waive land development requirements for the Lower Providence Presbyterian Church at 3050 Ridge Pike for their parking lot improvements. And Mike Brzezinski, you have some background?
Yes,
on that?
please. Good evening, and thank you. Lower Providence Presbyterian is in the midst of a couple of phases of a larger project that they're doing to improve their historic site. As you may recall, last year you approved a lot line consolidation. The second phase is basically to allow for an expansion of the parking lot, and the applicant's engineer, Johanna, will be just running through that real quick for us. Both Tim and myself have met with the applicants and their design professionals and reviewed it, and we are recommending that the waiver be granted. The third part, which is kind of the punchline, is that they will be coming in for a land development for a bigger project, and so at that time we'll be addressing a lot of the bigger major issues of their expansion.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for clarifying. Joe, did you have something? Good evening.
Mike mentioned, we were here last year. Church had several parcels of ground, and part of this expansion, that parking lot was one of those parcel lines. So we talked about doing consolidation. It was reported last August. So that is complete. And this work, like, to orient everyone, at the top of the plan is Ridge Pike, the main entrance to the facility and the church building. In the center part up along Ridge Pike, the existing parking lot is to this side of the church, and this shaded area is where we're proposing to add some parking, and then the existing parking lot will be overlaid as part of that. Along the edge or downgrade of the parking lot will be a stone infiltration trench to catch stormwater runoff from the parking area. The church, when they purchased parcels along Ridge Pike, there were two houses that were on separate parcels that they've raised over the past few years. So there's an offset of about 5,000 square foot of impervious that were coverage in those houses that will offset some of the new parking area.
Anybody have any questions?
Tim and Mike, I would assume it's reasonable to say that this the expansion of the parking lot in and of itself is not going to increase traffic volume or the number of trips per day or any of the other.
That's what we
Components of-
understand, Mr.
okay.
Zucchini, yes, that no new population is expected at the church due to this portion of the project. I think what they're proposing actually organizes traffic circulation patterns a little better as well. So there is a safety improvement, from my opinion, as well. So there are some benefits. They are taking care of that stormwater runoff. So I think in general, it's a pretty good project, and I think one worthy of a waiver of land development.
And nothing involved in this project changes the primary use of the facility as a house of worship.
That's correct.
Just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay, someone would like to put forth a motion then, if want to entertain the waiver.
I'll make a motion to waive land development.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any more questions from the board? Questions from the audience on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Okay.
Thank you.
Joe. Nice to
Thank
see
you, Joe.
Item 2B, consideration of a resolution setting the compensation for the Lower Providence tax collector. And our township manager has some background on that request.
Thank you, Mrs. Heckman. You have before you resolution number 17-08. According to local taxation law, every 4 years, prior to municipal election of the tax collector, the Board of Supervisors can set the compensation for the next 4 years for the tax collector, and that's what this resolution will do. And I can read the resolution into the record. It's whereas 2017 is the year of the municipal election, now therefore be it resolved that Lower Providence Township hereby sets compensation for the collection of real estate taxes for any tax collector to have been appointed or elected, as the case may be, for the years 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021, as follows. $3 per each real estate tax bill and $1 per each delinquent tax bill. This amount per bill includes reimbursement for all billing expenses of the tax collector other than bonding, postage, printing, and envelopes. The tax collector shall be separately reimbursed for up to $1,500 per year for printing and envelope expenses upon receipt of actual expenses. Tax collector shall also be separately reimbursed for bonding and postage upon receipt of actual expenses.
Thank you, Don. All right, so we have in front of us a resolution that would not increase the rate for the tax collector for the next 4 years. Would anybody like to put forth a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Peter. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions on the motion from the board? Questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Okay, item 2C, zoning amendment. Our township solicitor has a background on the zoning amendment. This is for the medical marijuana.
Thank you. Advertised for tonight for discussion, not for adoption, but for discussion and starting the process under the MPC to go to the planning commissions is a proposed zoning amendment that would implement the Pennsylvania Medical Marijuana Act, also called Act 16, which is due to initiate at least at the end of this month applications for facilities in the state. There's a limited number of facilities in the state that'll be licensed. I believe the licensing runs from February 20th until March 20th. The state will be taking applications. I know Mike's done a little bit of work on this, but the ordinance that's up for tonight, as I said, is just for discussion by the board and to address any questions. It sets forth some definitions for a medical marijuana dispensary, a grower, and a processor, and it's proposed to permit the uses in the township's IP district. There's also, as part of this, some additional off-street parking requirements. This is, as I said, was something that we started to look at last fall. Peter Nelson and Mike from my office put together an ordinance in December, and just to get ahead of this, because people that might be interested in doing this use in Lower Providence will need to know what the township's position is in terms of possible locations for the use. This is not necessarily set in stone. This goes through the planning process. This could change. The board can't act on this until the two planning commissions have given the board the recommendation. So this is just to give notice to anybody that's out there that might have some interest in this. And like I said, tonight is just for the board to move this on to the two planning commissions. Mike, do you have some other info to add to this?
The fact that we had this advertised is basically just to can allow the township to control where this would go. The time is of an essence for the applicants because of the March deadline. So this is giving us the best opportunity to put it where we want it, so to speak. If there's any specific questions I might be able to answer, I'd be happy to do so.
Just for the benefit of the public, and we have on display at the screen, the number one, to reiterate, we are considering an ordinance so that we have some control over this should it come up. We are not reacting to any immediate application for use by anyone at this point. And the slide that is on the screen shows that in the entire southeast region of Pennsylvania, which includes counties west out to Lancaster and beyond Berks, all the way over to the river, only 10 retail dispensary permits will be granted and only 2 grower permits in that entire area. So this is not something that we have reason to believe is going to be imposed upon us anytime real soon, but we do want to have, in accordance with the state law, this ordinance in place. And the language we're considering is state language, right? We're not modifying this language beyond what the state requirements are.
No, we're essentially picking a location and then also having some parking criteria, which the state really doesn't address, those types of traditional zoning. And the rest of the regulations will be incorporated in this use. The state is going to highly regulate this, and they have some limitations in terms of location themselves. They have some locational distances to daycares and other facilities like that. They also have some financing requirements. There's in the act, there's a whole fairly extensive list in terms of regulation of this use. So we're incorporating that. We can't change that. That's really within the state's purview. This is a type of use, it's location, and then sort of traditional zoning criteria, buffer yards. If somebody was going to put a building up, it would have to file a land development plan. But we don't have anything. There's been no formal requests. There's nothing specific other than we just, we're trying to get ahead of this, before this expands. This is the first round in the state, and the number of licenses and permits are going to be very limited.
And I believe worth noting that in so doing, we're able to then keep something like this out of a residential area and direct it more to a commercial area, which would be more appropriate.
And John, the proposed ordinance would put the medical marijuana dispensary and the grow facilities basically in the Point Park Industrial Park.
Right.
Okay. So if we all want to proceed, we would need a motion to advertise this ordinance that's in front of us, and then, once advertised,
Yeah, we're not ready to advertise this until the planning commission.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So this is just to refer this on to the township and the county planning commission, get some specific comments from them, and then based on what they say, and the board may be of a mind to do, something a little bit differently. I think we need to analyze probably some of the locations, the zoning district, to make sure that there's no conflicts, but this will start the process. This is just a motion to move it on to the planning commissions at this point.
Okay. All right, well, would someone like to make that motion then?
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any questions? Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, it's a nice, quick meeting. We have some announcements. Sewer Authority will be meeting next week, February 8th at 7:30. The Park and Rec Board will have their meeting on February 14th at 7 p.m. And that's it until our next board meeting. Comments and other business. Board members, comments and other business?
I would just like to note that the library wine tasting this year is on Saturday, March 25th. So keep your eyes out for some announcements and head to the library website and start to purchase your tickets. It's going to be a great time as always this year.
Excellent. Any other comments? Comments from the audience? Kirsten, can you come up?
Good evening.
Good
I
evening.
just wanted to say thank you to the Board of Supervisors for their help in procuring a spot for this year, and to Jason and Mr. McFarland for your help with last year with the other location. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I think we should make it's an official announcement. When will you start collecting up at the sewer authority?
The first date is in March. I'll get the dates here.
So new this year, our tax collector will now have a permanent home, right, Kirsten?
Yeah, March 21st is the first date.
March 21st, in the sewer authority building, and you'll have enough parking and accessibility.
And flat access to the
Mhm.
building. And did you get a copy of that yet? Do you want a copy? It's the lease.
The lease with the sewer authority?
Sewer Authority?
Yeah, do you want a copy? I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate it. Last year I was pulling my hair out for this.
Well, we're happy that you have a place so close, and I think we'll make sure we advertise your hours and the new location so that our residents see that in March.
Hopefully it'll make things easier on the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Borai.
In all due respect to the tax collector, the lease hasn't been signed yet. The lease won't be signed until the 8th, okay?
Okay, at your
Then
sewer
you can-
authority.
Then you can say everything you want to say, but right now, the
Okay.
lease hasn't been signed yet.
Okay, so it's pending.
Proposed lease.
Proposal, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you. We'll make sure
And
that that
I'd like
gets.
to make another little announcement. I want to thank you guys for putting me on the sewer authority.
Thank you for your service.
Thank
We're
you.
happy to have you helping again. Okay, any other announcements? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the adjournment. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and meeting's adjourned, and we'll see you on February 16th.